Morgoth defied the gods themselves, tearing the world apart in his hunger for domination. Sauron twisted the hearts of kings with whispers of manipulation and the rings of power. But the most insidious monsters? They don't need armies. They don't need magic. They don't even need a throne. Eöl was no Dark Lord, no conqueror clad in black and steel. He did not burn cities or drown the world in shadow. His evil was smaller and quieter, but no less devastating. Because he did something worse than waging war. He took a woman and made her his captive. He shattered her freedom, stripped her choices, and convinced her that escape was impossible. He did not rule a kingdom, he ruled a life. And long after his death, his poison remained. This is the story of Eöl, the dark elf of Elmoth. Eöl was not like the other elves of Middle-earth. He was a Sindarin elf, one of the Grey Elves who chose to remain in Middle-earth rather than follow the call of the Valar to Valinor. But unlike his kin, who lived in noble halls or walked freely through the world, Eöl preferred the darkness. He made his home in Elmoth, a deep, shadowed forest twisted by enchantments. It was a place where sunlight barely touched the earth, where time seemed to slow, where even birds and beasts whispered rather than sang. Eöl was a master craftsman, known for his skill in metalwork. He forged Galvern, a black, flexible metal that was nearly unbreakable, an invention that should have made him famous among elves. But instead, he shunned the world. He hated the Noldor, the High Elves who had come from Valinor. He blamed them for bringing war and ruin to Middle-earth. He saw them as arrogant, reckless invaders, and he refused to live among them. But isolation does something to a man. When you cut yourself off from the world, you start believing the world belongs to you alone. And that is where the story of Aredhel begins. Aredhel Arfiniel, the White Lady of the Noldor, was never meant to be a captive. She was a free spirit, the sister of Turgon, king of Gondolin. Unlike the other noble women of her kin, Aredhel did not desire a quiet, sheltered life. She was restless, longing to see the lands beyond the hidden walls of Gondolin. And so, she left. Against her brother's wishes, she rode out into Middle-earth, seeking adventure. But what she found was Elmoth and the dark figure who ruled it. Eöl saw her, and he decided she would be his. He did not court her or try win her heart. Instead, he simply took her. He used his enchantments, his knowledge of the dark woods, and his will to bend fate itself, and Aredhel, the White Lady, found herself ensnared. Eöl brought her into his forest, his home, and he made her stay. Did she love him? No, but she obeyed, because what else could she do? She was isolated, cut off from her family, her home, her people, and Eöl made sure it stayed that way. He forbade her from leaving Elmoth. He ensured that she saw no one, spoke to no one. She was his prisoner, but he called her his wife. Eventually, Aredhel bore him a son, and for a moment, it seemed as though Maeglin might bring light into the darkness of Elmoth. But Eöl did not see his son as a gift. He saw him as an heir to his hatred. He raised Maeglin to despise the Noldor, to see them as enemies. He taught him that his mother's people were arrogant, selfish warmongers, and that their ways were not to be trusted. But what Eöl did not realize was that Maeglin was his mother's son as much as his father's. He inherited Aredhel's spirit, her longing for the wide world, her hunger for freedom. And as he grew older, he began to listen to his mother's whispers of Gondolin, of the city of starlight, of the life that had been stolen from her. And that's where the cage began to crack. Eöl's greatest weapon was control. Like all abusers, he used isolation as his shield. By keeping Aredhel separated from her kin, from any hope of escape, he ensured she had nowhere else to go. And over time, it wore her down. Even though she was stronger than him, a daughter of Fingolfin, a warrior of the Noldor, she did not fight him, because he made her believe she had no choice. Stories like this are often buried, hidden in the shadows of Middle-earth's grand battles and noble heroes. But these tales deserve to be told, because the monsters we forget are often the ones that lurk the longest. If you enjoy discovering stories like this, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps bring them into the light. Let's continue. Some prisons are built from stone and steel. Others are built from fear, isolation, and control. For years, Aredhel lived under Eol's rule, cut off from her people, her family, and the life she once knew. But no cage lasts forever, not even one built in the heart of the darkest forest in Middle-earth. Because one day, Aredhel made a choice. She was done being his possession. She would take her son, and she would run. But Eol had never let her make a choice before, and he would not allow it now. Eol had built a world where he was king, even if it was only over 2 people. He did not allow Aredhel to leave the forest. He did not allow her to speak of her home, of her past, of the life that existed before she was his. He had made her small, her world shrinking more and more until there was only him. But Maeglin? Maeglin was different. The boy listened to his mother's stories. He heard of the white city of Gondolin, of its towering walls and shining halls, of the world beyond the dark trees of Nan Elmoth. And he wanted more. He wanted to escape to freedom. And so the son and the mother became conspirators. They whispered in secret. They planned and waited. When the time came, they did what Eol had never allowed them to do before. They chose their own path. When Eol was away from Nan Elmoth, Aredhel took Maeglin and escaped. They rode fast, pushing their horses to the limit, tearing through the wild lands of Beleriand. For the first time in years, Aredhel felt the wind on her face, the open sky above her. She had escaped the shadow, and she was going home. When Eol returned to Nan Elmoth, he found his house empty. Aredhel and his son were gone, and for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. But not for long. Because he had spent years controlling Aredhel, he knew how she thought, where she would go. Aredhel and Maeglin reached Gondolin. She stood before her brother, King Turgon, and at last she was free. She was welcomed back, her son given a place among the people he had always longed for. For a moment, it seemed as though the story would have a happy ending. But Eol had never allowed Aredhel to decide her own fate before, and he would not allow it now. He had followed them all the way to Gondolin and risked everything to bring them back. And when he was captured, dragged before the king, he did not beg for forgiveness. He demanded his son's return, saying, "He is mine." Turgon refused. Eol did what he had always done when he lost control. He lashed out and threw a poisoned javelin at Maeglin. But the blow never landed, because Aredhel stepped in the way. She had escaped his prison, but in the end, he still took her life. Eol was sentenced to death. He was dragged to the Caragdur, the great cliff where criminals of Gondolin were cast down, but before he fell, he cursed Maeglin. He did not plead for mercy. He did not apologize. He spat hatred until the last moment, throwing his final words like another poisoned spear. "You will not prosper here, and neither will this city." And then he fell into the abyss. The dark elf of Nan Elmoth was no more. Eol's hatred, his manipulation, his need for control, they did not vanish when he fell from that cliff. They had already taken root in Maeglin. His son, who had once longed for Gondolin, now lived in it as an outsider. The child of a captive mother and an abusive father would grow up to be twisted by his own obsessions. And one day, when the time came, he would betray Gondolin to Morgoth. He would lead the enemy into the city his mother had died to reach. And the doom that Eol spoke of, it would come true, because some legacies do not fade. So what was Eol's true evil? He never led an army, he never conquered a kingdom, he never sought to control the world. But he did not need to, because Eol's true evil was not in what he built, but in what he broke. He did not just imprison Aredhel, he stole her choices, her life, her freedom. He did not just raise Maeglin, he twisted him, made him into something that would one day destroy everything Aredhel had loved. And long after his death, his shadow remained, not through magic or war, but through the damage he had left behind. Because sometimes the worst villains are not the ones who seek power, they are the ones who seek to control others. And even when they are gone, their poison lingers. So tell me, was Eol the most chilling villain in Middle-earth? Was he worse than Morgoth? Worse than Sauron? Or does the fact that he did not need an army, did not need magic, did not need a throne. Make him the most terrifying of all. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to keep uncovering the untold stories of Middle-earth, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Because some truths deserve to be brought into the light, and some shadows must never be forgotten.